And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Talkin' Bible with me, Rohan, and again with Aaron Waters. Hello, Aaron.
G'day.
And today we're talking about Jesus walking on the water.
We are.
Walk on the water.
Quite a story.
Quite a story.
I feel like it's weird.
Oh, yes.
Like, there are miracles, and then there's this. It's
Okay.
like...
Because no one's healed.
Yeah.
It's not like he's healing miracles or anything like that.
It's not like...
in a league of its own.
It's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes right after the feeding of the 5,000.
Okay. Does it come... Because it's in three Gospels. Does it come after the feeding of 5,000 in all of them or just in...
I think so. I'm looking at Matthew.
Matthew's Gospel,
in particular.
Okay. So Matthew 14.
I think
Mark
it does.
6.
Mark 6, yep.
Okay. And what about John 6?
John 6.
He's flicking through the pages of his NT Wright
finding
Bible.
out where everything is in this one. Yep, feeding the 5,000.
Okay, significant. All right, so in all three, it appears, and one of those is in a synoptic gospel, so that's going to be interesting, but all three, it appears after the feeding of the 5,000. Okay,
yep.
Take it away.
So, there was feeding the 5,000. It's pretty straightforward. You know, a whole bunch of people were watching Jesus preach, listening to his message, and they got in a bit of trouble because no one had enough food. So Jesus does the miracle and feeds all the people and everyone's happy.
Yep.
So it's sort of like one of those miracles that, you know, makes sense. It's God's provision. It's people are in need and he's meeting a need. It's showing God's love for his people and all those sorts of things. And then, it says, you know, once all that had happened, and he dismissed the crowds, verse 22. So this is Matthew 15:22. Jesus at once made the disciples...
Matthew 14, is it?
Sorry, Matthew 14.
Yep.
22. Jesus at once made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the opposite shore while he dismissed the crowds. After he had sent the crowds away, Jesus went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there by himself. The boat had already gone some distance from the shore and was being smashed around by the waves, since the wind was against it. At the very dead of night, he came towards them, walking on the water. The disciples saw him walking on the sea, and panicked. "It's a ghost," they said, and they screamed in terror. But Jesus at once spoke to them. "Cheer up," he said. "It's me."
Cheer up, old boy.
"It's me. Don't be frightened." "If it's really you, Master," said Peter in reply, "give me the word to come to you on the water." "Come along then," said Jesus. Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind, he was afraid and began to sink. "Master," he yelled, "rescue me." Jesus at once reached out his hand and caught him. "A fine lot of faith you've got," he said. "Why did you doubt?" They got into the boat and the wind died down. The people in the boat worshipped him. "You really are God's son," they said. So they crossed over to the land called Gennesaret. And, you know, he proceeded to do more miracles and things.
Yes, he healed the Gadarene man over there, the demon-possessed man. Yep.
So what's going on here? Because, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Yep.
Walking on water. But it's not... It doesn't look like a lot of his other miracles.
No. I haven't done my most recent research on it. I suspect it's got as much to do with Jesus illustrating his authority over the elements, which would have been necessary. If I'm right, you might have done some more research on this. I'm just going to rack my brain on my history now of what I've learned. It might even be that they had some sense that the Messiah could control the weather.
Okay.
And that's what they were expecting the Messiah to be able to do. So Jesus is fulfilling that. He's illustrating that to them. But don't hold me to that. I think that's just something that's lodged in the back of my brain somewhere.
I think that from what I've seen, there's a little bit of I wouldn't say necessarily it's a strong expectation, but there's certainly a kind of it's very much associated with the power of God
Yes.
in a lot of ways.
I think
The
from
only
memory it might be linked.
reference-
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Well, the only direct reference to walking on water that I found was in Job 9,
Okay.
in verse 8. But in that passage is talking about just how powerful God is, and it's like you can't really argue with God because he's
I see.
the creator, is the in control of everything. He's the he has power over all of the extremes of the world. Without warning, he moves the mountains, overturning them in his anger. He shakes the earth from its place, and its foundations tremble. If he commands it, the sun won't rise and the stars won't shine. He alone has spread out the heavens and marches on the waves of the sea. He made all of the stars, the Bear, the Orion, the Pleiades, and the constellations of the southern sky. He does great things too marvelous to understand. He performs countless miracles.
Okay, so I suspect there is a bit of that intention there. So that's obviously metaphorical language, talking about the vastness of God, and God in Job, explaining to Job, who is limited in his thinking about how great God is. And I suspect that that's kind of what they're riffing off. And Jesus is going, I'm going to show you how great I am, that I have mastery over these things.
Yeah.
I was thinking to couple that with that as well. I know we're probably more so talking about that he calmed it down once he got in the water.
Yes.
As well as walking on the water.
I know that comes up quite a bit.
That's right.
In the Old Testament.
Yeah, it does. And I was thinking also about, that the waters are seen as chaos. The waters are seen as uncontrollable. And so Jesus controls the water by walking over it and taking authority over it. But even over the elements, the one that came to mind, I don't think I've ever thought about this before, but it just came to mind as you were reading, is the time when Joshua is fighting and the sun stands still for a whole day.
Yeah.
And I think there's a sense in which Joshua, as the deliverer, has that ability to master the elements and control them. So I wonder if that's part of this loading up this expectation that the Messiah, the deliverer, will have some divine authority over the elements.
And also, I think it was Joshua with the leading them into the promised land across the Jordan.
Across the Jordan River, absolutely.
Without drying up. And then earlier Moses parting the Red Sea out of Egypt. So it's kind of the
parting
recurring
the
thing.
parting of the waters is a common theme. It happens 4 times. Moses crosses the Red Sea, Joshua crosses the Jordan River, and then Elijah and Elisha both do the same thing. So Elijah does it when he crosses over before he goes in the chariot, and then Elisha immediately following does it straight away. So it's almost like Jesus goes one up and goes, well, I don't need to cross it. I'll just walk straight over the top of it. He doesn't need the dry ground. He just goes over the top. So he's one-upping Moses, really. But I reckon there's a bit of that there. There is a sense in which this is, so, you said, why is this miracle significant? I think it's significant because what it demonstrates about who Jesus is, even though there's no direct healing. And there's no indication that they were going to be swamped. These are seasoned fishermen. And yes, it is a serious storm, but, there's something more going on here. The fact that Jesus walks out into this storm. And that storms on the Sea of Galilee are very real. I've talked about this before. You can be as flat as a pancake in the morning, flat as a pancake all day, and then at a certain time of the day, in the late afternoon, the wind rips up, or even during the night, it just comes down over the hills. And it's not even really strong wind. It's just the way the hills surround the lake. It creates surf, literally. You can have 2 meter swell in a freshwater lake. The next morning, I've seen it. It was 2 meter swell. The next morning, it's just flat as a pancake. You can see a reflection in it.
That's crazy.
So it's crazy, but it's just the particular geographical structure.
That's interesting because I often think, isn't it just a lake? Isn't it like a... it's not like a big body of water. It's not like the Pacific Ocean or something. It's not like Hawaii getting hit by these huge swells.
My wife Jill nearly drowned in it.
Wow.
We went for a swim one afternoon, and this exact thing happened.
Wow.
It just got really choppy. We were body surfing, and it just got choppier and choppier. And then we were in a swimming hole, and there was one of those, plastic rope things that there. But literally, the swell took us straight under that thing, and up the other side of it. So she was too far; she couldn't reach it. I was trying to get out there to rescue her, and then the next morning it's as flat as a pancake. So it gave me an appreciation for, and I researched it since, and I realised this was not uncommon. Probably it was uncommon that these fishermen were scared, because that would have taken a lot to scare them.
Yep.
And of course, then they see Jesus walking on the water. That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
But there's certainly a lot going on in this story.
Yeah. And it says in Mark that it was about 3:00 in the morning. So this is, and I guess it's like they must have just left in the evening straight after.
Yep. After the feeding of the 5,000.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus had said, hey, I'm going off to pray.
Yeah.
Off you go. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Make your way back home.
Yep.
Yeah. And, they walked around the Sea of Galilee. And if you say the traditional site of where the feeding of the 5,000 is, it's probably you could walk back to Capernaum, assuming that's where they were going, back to Capernaum or Bethsaida around the north. So it's sort of on the northwestern side, around to the north. But for these guys, it would have just been easy to jump in a boat and sail across. They're not actually going directly across the lake. They're probably cutting off a corner of it. Ironically, where they end up is right over the far side of the lake, opposite side where Jesus takes them. But, so they just obviously got in the boat and went, oh, well, they're used to Jesus racing off them. He'll come back when he wants to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing in Mark that I think sheds a little bit of light on it, or probably on Jesus' intentions and through this, is that it said, late that night, the disciples were in their boat in the middle of the lake, and Jesus was alone on land. He saw that they were in serious trouble, rowing hard and struggling against the wind and waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water, but he intended to go past them.
Good point. I think that's the anti-gospel version that says that.
Yeah. And that's interesting, I think. It's like he saw that they were in trouble, but didn't seem to be too bothered by it.
Right.
And then when he went out and walked on the water, it was like he was just going to go past them.
Yes.
It's like...
That seems a bit callous, Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think's happening there?
Good question. A couple of things come to mind. The first one is maybe there's a sense where it's supposed to be linked to the Lord passing by Moses.
Okay.
I don't know. Just thinking about that, where he says, "You can't see my face, but I'm going to pass by you." The Lord, I think Exodus 20.
Yep.
The Lord passed by and said, the Lord, the gracious and compassionate one. Exodus, no, it's not, it might be Exodus, somewhere in Exodus. I can't remember. So there's that thing there.
And that was quite a sign of power over the elements, wasn't it?
Totally.
That was like storms and all sorts of stuff.
On Mount Sinai, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So I wonder if that's part of it. The other thing that came to mind as you were saying it was Jesus often seemed to walk past people. So there was the blind men. He just walked straight past them and waited for them to call out to him.
Yep.
So I think sometimes Jesus waits for a call of desperation or a call of faith. Yeah. And sometimes he requires faith and sometimes desperation is enough. Like there's no indication these guys go, oh, it's Jesus, save us. That doesn't seem to be the case. They don't recognize who he is at first. So they're calling out in desperation. And doesn't he say, take heart, it is me? Is that what he says?
Yeah.
So it was enough for them to cry out in terror, for Jesus' compassion to be moved toward them and go, here I am.
Yeah.
So sometimes there'll be times in our life where we call out in faith, Lord, we believe you can do this. Other times we might be like these guys on the boat and just say, Lord, I got nothing left. I'm scared. Help me, Lord, help me through life.
Yeah.
Or the man whose son is constantly throwing himself in the fire and says, Lord, if you can do anything, help me. And Jesus says, well, anything's possible if you believe.
Yeah.
So Jesus does respond to say Jesus only responds to faith, I think, is to make Jesus a little bit more callous than he is.
Yeah.
I think as we mature, he will want us to exercise more faith. But it's not like he won't respond to desperation or even fear too, because he's a gracious and compassionate child. God, no parent is going to expect their child to always respond in faith to every situation. When a child cuts themselves, mum's not saying toughen up, son. Mum's getting a Band-Aid and looking after. But as time goes on, you expect more from them, and I think that's the process of growth. Yep. And they're very young in their faith here. Yeah. And Jesus responds in to them. So I don't think he was going past them. If he was, why did he go close to them?
Yeah, that's the thing, I think. He was there.
He was there. He just needed them to cry out and respond. And obviously we see faith. Peter does have faith to get out of the boat. Of course, then he sees the circumstances again and starts to sink.
Yeah.
And I think it's only Matthew's gospel that mentions Pete getting out of the boat. Yep. Yeah, the others don't do that.
Yep. So, yeah. Well, that was an interesting thing as well. And, I think we were talking yesterday about some of the differences between the Gospels.
Yep.
And And the interesting thing about this story is that it's in 3 of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and John, but not Luke.
Not Luke. And that would be rare that there would be stories in Matthew, Mark, and John and not Luke. Or in 2 of the synoptics and John. I don't know if there's another story that is in the synoptics and John, or some of the synoptics and John.
Yeah, because normally if there's one of them's going to be the odd one out, it'll be John.
It would be John. And there's only a handful of stories that are in all 4. Feeding of the 5,000, maybe 2 other stories. The cleansing of the temple, or that's in a different time. There's only a handful of stories. So it's like a different account of Jesus' life, but here's the overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what did you find on that? Do scholars have any speculation as to why?
Oh, did they have speculation?
Oh, good. That's the sort of thing that scholars love to talk about.
It's one of these things that it quickly becomes this rabbit hole of, everyone has another theory on what it could be.
I don't mind them having theories. I've done some study on this recently for my master's too. What I get frustrated is about when they get so emphatic about their opinion that they get dismissive of other opinions. I'm going, come on, you can have an opinion, but surely you can't be that emphatic about it.
Yeah, so there's a few interesting ones, and I think it's the thing that stands out in this is that there's actually a few passages from Mark. A lot of this is to do with sort of Mark being the earlier writing that then Luke would have taken material from and used as a reference to write his gospel. But there's this passage, and I think a little bit before or after, or just it's like there's just this chunk,
a section
that's missing.
Ah, right. Okay.
And so there's these ideas. So there's a lot of thoughts. A lot of them is like because maybe it's a narrative decision, like he didn't think it was quite so important. He was more focused on the journey to Jerusalem. Yep. And this was out of which would have made sense, I guess, that Luke's gospel is very much like Jesus was born and then set his face for Jerusalem. It's almost like that with the way Luke's telling his story. Yes. Yep. And then, but I think that my favourite one was that he was probably working from Mark, but maybe like with my coffee in the Bible this morning, it was sort of like, well, maybe he was just missing a couple of pages.
Yeah.
He had Mark, but he was a couple of pages.
And we have to be aware that may be the case. These Gospels were written in parchment, and I think most scholars think that they would have been transmitted orally. Like you watch The Chosen, you see Matthew writing down and John's writing down as well, and that may have happened. It's quite possible that there was that level of note taking. Jesus probably makes perfect sense to me. But I'm also aware that a lot of these stories were transmitted. Did you see what Jesus did today? And the word got out about that, and then added to the story. So that would have been very much a big part of it. So maybe he was just missing a few pages. That makes sense.
But then I think there were a bunch of other scholars were saying no, it couldn't be that because they were using scrolls, not piles of papers.
Scrolls, not parchments.
At that time. Okay. Yeah. So it's hard to lose a piece of the middle of a parchment. Though I guess if you spilt coffee on it, maybe.
I'm surprised that they were saying they were scrolls. I didn't think they were scrolls at this time. I thought they were using certainly by the time Paul's writing, he's using parchment, which is books, sheets of paper. So I'm surprised that. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought they were.
Maybe those scholars think it was written later, and other scholars think it's written earlier.
Yeah, so maybe so. Yeah, and there's all these different opinions about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I find it interesting, and again, I think I like that. Even though these are things that we could never figure out, no amount of scholarly study and. You just can't find
100% emphatic.
You just can't find the information. You could never find enough evidence to know one way or the other for sure. Right. But it's interesting to think about and interesting to explore.
I find it a wonderful experience to think about how these early accounts were transmitted and that they stood the test of time and they stood up against some of the, like the Gospel of Thomas and some of these other ones that were clearly fanciful, and yet the corpus of what we have in our canon are attributed stories that were attributed to Jesus and his disciples and those that were closest to him. Basically, either every account we have is either by someone who walked with Jesus or a secondhand account of someone who's speaking on behalf of someone who walked with Jesus. So it's very close. Some of these other more fanciful ones are are way more removed than that. And yet here we have these stories held. Jesus walked on the water. I mean, that is a significant event.
Yep, and I think if there's one thing that the scholars seem to agree on is that Luke wasn't dismissive of this story.
No.
It wasn't like he left it out because he didn't believe it or he
Right.
thought it was too fanciful.
Okay.
Because there's plenty of things in Luke that
There's plenty of other things
that
in
are
Luke
just
that
as
are-
crazy.
Exactly, yeah.
Just as crazy miracles, but it's.
So it would part of it might this is just me adding to the mix. If Luke's writing to Greeks, maybe it doesn't have the same the same necessity of the story as it did because we started this episode by saying it was to do with the book of Job and this sense of what the Messiah would do and all those things. Maybe it didn't have that sense to the Greeks. Maybe the Greeks were used to so much supernatural mythology in their Greek pantheon that it might not have had the effect that
I think it was the sons of Poseidon.
Yeah, well,
I think
they would have been used to
walked on water.
walking. Yeah, absolutely, they would have been. Yeah,
and there's other mythological figures that ran on water. I think there was some Japanese ninjas that would run so fast they'd skip across the water. I was trying to find all
that would make sense.
Who
That
else?
would be
Who
something
else would they think about? Who else would this have reminded them of at the time?
At the time,
but it's all
So
of those things. They
makes total
still
sense to me.
feel, they seem related, but they still feel little bit separate, a little bit different from this.
Yes,
this
and
story.
we're dealing here with a man who walked on the water, as opposed to a divine, they would have seen the demigods or Hercules or what's his name? The one who delivered all the mail, the messenger god in the Greek pantheon would run on water and things like that. So that would have been, that would have just been something they would see, but they wouldn't imagine that a man would do that. And here we have the God-man Jesus doing that, walking on the water. Yeah, I don't know. That is as good an excuse as any as to why Luke may not have decided to put it in there. It might have he might have felt like it would confuse things more for a Greek audience. But here we are. He's chosen to leave it out for whatever reason, and the others have got it in there. Significant story.
Yeah.
I just remembered something. When Jesus says, "I am here," once again, I haven't done my research, so this is just racking the back of my brain. I think the way it's written is it's another "I am" statement. It's like "I am," and I think that's where scholars get that sense. We'd have to do the research on that. I think it's where scholars get that sense of this is Jesus' divinity at play here to show his divinity, because he says to them, fear not, I am.
Yeah.
And the language that's not the Hebrew version, but whatever the Greek version of it is. So it's like he's making a declaration of his divinity. And they clearly are blown away by it, because when he gets back in the boat, they're all, who is this guy? Even the winds and the waves seem to obey him. He seems to have this sense of absolute bewilderment at who this one is.
Yeah.
Who could calm the storm, who could walk on the water. Yes.
So
anything else?
There's heaps.
Okay.
I think we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
This why did Paul want to get out of the boat? Why did he say, if it's really you, give me the word to come to you on the water?
Yeah.
Well,
Pete gets a hard time, but this is one of the times where I think it's easy to sit in the boat and complain about Peter, but at least the dude had a go.
Yeah.
He got out of the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He said here. So I reckon he has, which fits with the culture. It fits with what the Gospels tell us about Peter. A little bit hot-headed, a little bit erratic.
Yep.
What's the word I'm after? Compulsive even.
Yep.
But not necessarily always. Sometimes his compulsiveness got him into a mess, but sometimes it allowed him to do things like this. When the other guys weren't prepared to, he's going, Lord, I'm going to have a crack at this. And he got out of the boat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hats off to him that he even had a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we use that metaphor a lot to talk about the journey of faith, that Jesus calms the storms in our life, and that he calls us to have faith to get out of the boat and walk on it. And the power to walk on the water didn't happen while Peter was still in the boat. He had to get out of the boat, put his foot on the water, and then trust that God would empower that. And that's often how faith works. You've got to get yourself into that position where there's no going back. You're out on the limb, to use another metaphor, and the limb's going to break. That's where you see the power of God at work. Yeah.
Yeah. And the only other thing I noticed was I think it was in Mark, where it says that they were amazed, for they still didn't understand the significance of the miracle of the loaves.
Wow. So he's reflecting back on the fact that they're still bewildered by who is this man?
Yeah.
Who is this Jesus?
And it was interesting. I thought that it talked about what happened with the feeding the 5,000, that miracle. It's the same lesson when we're looking at the walking on water somehow.
So I think the link would have to be something to do with this Jesus showing his divinity and absolute authority over nature.
Yeah.
He's able to multiply food, which is the realm of the gods.
Yeah.
In all cultures, pick whether it's Jewish thought or any other pagan thought, the ability to, because you understand in that ancient culture, they're totally dependent. They can't go to Woolworths and get some food. They're totally dependent upon the rains, which is in the realm of the gods.
Yeah.
So for someone to be able to feed them, for someone to be able to control the elements is an absolute claim of divinity.
Yep.
Which I think we would be underselling it for us who know the story to not realise how significant that was to them. That's why they were amazed. That's why they were still trying to figure it out. Perhaps they were just trying to figure this out, is that he's the Messiah. But this is more than the Messiah. This is more than a man.
Yeah.
Men don't do these things.
Yeah.
And that's part of the journey that they're figuring. Men don't multiply food like this. This is like what Elijah did on steroids.
Yeah.
This is what Moses did on steroids, and I think that's what they're trying to wrestle with, perhaps.
Very interesting story. And
It's
as
a
I said,
great
I think
story.
I could talk about this for hours.
Oh yeah, there's lots of that. But we'll leave that. We don't have hours, so we'll leave that. We'll come back to it at some point, I'm sure.
Yep.
All right, we're going to move on to another episode. We'll talk to you on the next one. See you then.
See you later.